guys, it's Graham with Ragnar Tactical. We're going to go over a basic field strip and cleaning of an AR platform rifle. So first thing we want to do is make sure that we take out the magazine, pointing it in a safe direction. Lock the bolt to the rear. Look inside the magazine well, look inside the chamber 3 times. Run the action several times just to make sure it's unloaded. And then we're going to take it apart. So we're just going to do a basic cleaning today. This is just the way that I do it. Other people do it differently. I would recommend that maybe every few years, if you shoot a lot, you take it to a gunsmith and actually get a detail strip and clean where they dunk it in a tank, check all the springs, everything like that. So we've already confirmed that it's unloaded. First of all, I'm going to hit this little takedown pin in the rear and pull that forward. Then I'm going to open it up. I call this breaking it down shotgun style. From here, I'm going to take out my charging handle and my bolt carrier group. This is as far as I go on the actual upper and lower receivers. Next, I'm going to take apart the bolt carrier group. So the first thing I need to do is take something really small, like a small Allen wrench or a little tiny screwdriver. I'm going to remove this little cotter pin here. Once I get that out of there, I'm going to let my firing pin drop, and all I have to do is bang it on my hand and it should come out. Put that off to the side. Be really careful when you're putting these parts down that you don't let them roll off the table and lose them. From here, you can turn your cam pin and bang that out. There it goes. From here, I take out the bolt itself out of the bolt carrier. The last thing I do is I'm going to take off the extractor. There's a little pin in here. It will help to get it out if you put a little bit of pressure on the front of the pin with your thumb while you're pushing out with the pin. Then you can take off that extractor. Let's talk about what we need to clean. So for starters, I have this little bore brush here that is expanded on the sides, and that's going to fit in perfectly for cleaning my chamber face and all these lugs right here that are really hard to get to. Next, I'm going to need a rag. I'm going to need at least 1 pipe cleaner, a bunch of Q-tips, some other tools. I really like bore snakes. This one's in 22 caliber, made for a 5.56 223, and it has both bristles and little what would be the same as punching patches through. A good copper powder solvent such as Hops number 9. Gun scrubber for when I'm done scrubbing it out to blast it all out. I like to have both a wire brush for my internal parts and a nylon brush for any external parts so I don't scratch my finish. Obviously we have lubricant for when the job's done. And then I like to put my copper powder solvent in a shot glass. That way I can put in certain parts and let them soak, such as the bolt, and I can leave it in there for a while. The bolt, the firing pin, and all these other little tiny parts that get really, really nasty. An additional tool that's handy to have is one of these little AR15 cleaning tools. You can find a variety of them on the internet. They're really cheap. This one was somewhere around $5 to $10, and it can get in a lot of places that you can't get with traditional bore brushes. So I'll put that off to the side. All right, so we're gonna start by scrubbing out our lower receiver. There's an old myth that if you dip your cleaning brush into solvent and then re-dip it in again, that you're contaminating the solvent. I found that not to be true. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I take my lower receiver off safe, and I'm gonna press the trigger and I'm gonna ride the hammer forward so I don't damage it. Next, I take my wire brush and I scrub out my lower receiver. Next, I'm going to move on to the upper receiver. So I'm going to scrub out the chamber face. Those lugs in there get really nasty with carbon deposits. Okay. I'm just give it a quick scrubbing all around in there. Next, I'm going to take this bore brush with a thick end on it here that's specially designed for AR15s. Get some solvent on it there. Put it in and crank it hard. Okay, so let's get to work on the charging handle and the bolt carrier group and the bolt. So the charging handle gets pretty nasty. I get a little bit of solvent on my wire brush, and scrub that down. And put that off to the side. Next, my bolt carrier, I'm gonna scrub that baby down. Now this is where my handy dandy little tool comes into help. I like to put a little bit of solvent on it in there. I stick it inside and I can turn it, and that'll get a bunch of carbon deposits from inside here. Because inside here is one of the places where you're really gonna get a lot of nasty gunk in there. I also, my gas key here, this handy tool has a way of cleaning that out too. Okay? So I should have said earlier, you should always do this in a well-ventilated area such as your garage. Next, we're gonna blow out the parts with a blaster, basically gun scrubber or brake cleaner, whatever you wanna use, is all kind of the same stuff. And basically, I'm gonna blow everything out of it as much as I can. That's gonna eliminate how much I'm gonna have to wipe off this bad boy. So I take each piece and I blow it out. This is gonna get off most of the stuff that you're gonna clean up, have to wipe off later. Just saves you some time. And lastly, we have inside the lower receiver and inside the chamber. Then I'll give it maybe 20 minutes to drip off and dry off. And then I take an old rag and I just wipe things down as much as I can to get as much garbage off as I can before I actually get to start using Q-tips. So wipe as much of it off as you can. Then I'm gonna take a couple of Q-tips at a time and just wipe them along everything. And you know, just like wiping your butt, just keep going until they come out white. So next I put in my bore snake into the barrel. I'm gonna feed it through the other end, pull it through. I can tell you that generally one time is good enough. Then you can put it up to a light source and look through and see that it's nice and clean. So now we've cleaned it all off and we're gonna put it back together. So first things first, I put my extractor back inside my bolt. Next I'm gonna get a little bit of lubricant, put it on top, and just rub it around with my fingers, creating a light film. A couple things to remember here. There's 3 gas rings. Just try to make it so that the little spaces are not lined up. Additionally, you don't need any lubricant on the chamber face, on the bolt face. Okay, but what you do want to do is put a little bit of extra love on these lugs right here, going around, okay? Next, I'm gonna put that back inside my bolt carrier, okay? Next, I'm gonna get my cam pin and put it back inside the bolt. Okay, and then I turn it just slightly. I pull it out, put my firing pin back in. Okay, and lastly, I recover my cotter pin and put that back in there. You gotta be careful with these that they don't get bent. Once the bolt carrier group is back together, I can ensure that it's put back together properly by just simply moving the bolt back and forth within the bolt carrier. Shouldn't come out. Okay, next, I like to put a little bit of lubricant on these rails on the underneath of the bolt carrier, and I move them around with my fingers, just kind of creating a light film all on top. Another place to avoid lubrication is inside the gas key. Nothing in there. Okay, so once I got that together, I like to put a little bit on top of the charging handle, move that around, again, a light film. So remember, the AR15 was designed to run wet. It's a wet system, so you really can't put too much lubrication on these things. I have found that they run even incredibly dirty as long as you keep them lubricated. So next, I'm gonna put a bell back together here. So I put in my charging handle first, a little groove in there that it slots into. Next, I get my bolt. Now, here's a common mistake. This bolt has to be pulled back. If it is pushed forward, it will not go in. So we have to pull it back to make sure that it will actually slide in. I simply fit the gas key underneath the charging handle and it'll fall forward. From there, I need to make sure that my hammer is down again. I close up the weapon. There we go. and then I can put my retaining pin back in. Okay. So the last thing we need to do is a function check to make sure we put everything together right. So there's a couple things we need to check on. First is we look it over in its entirety, real quick, a quick scan for broken, worn, missing parts, bulges on the barrel, anything like that. Okay, then we need to check all our working parts. Does the bolt lock to the rear? Yes, it does. If I hit the bolt release, does it release? Yes, it does. Does my dust cover close and open if I move the charging handle? Sure. I put it on safe. I point in safe direction. I've already triple checked to make sure it's loaded. My safety works. I take it off safe, onto fire. I press the trigger. While the trigger is still depressed to the rear, I rack the charging handle and let it go. Then I let the trigger out and I should feel and hear the click of the trigger resetting. That means I put it together properly. From there, I simply need to rack it again to cock it, and then I can put my safety back on. Every time I'm done, I have a habit, I always close the dust cover, just so there's no grime and dirt and dust that gets in there. Other things I need to check is my weapon mounted light. Does that work? Why, yes, it does. Additionally, I need to check my optics. So I can open up my optics and just make sure that I can still see my red dot. Okay, good to go. Okay, so let's talk about our magazines for a second. Maybe every couple of years I take off the base plate, take out the springs, wipe them down with a rag, wipe out the inside of the magazine shell, but quite honestly, I found they don't get that dirty. What I do always check is their functionality, and I always make sure that there's no debris inside the follower here that can impede its flowing system. So a couple things you need to check is one, is they seat and do they drop freely? Okay, and this one does. Next, when I rack the charging handle, does it lock to the rear in an empty magazine? And it does. So that means that this magazine is functioning perfectly. Okay, so that's a function check. That's cleaning. RagnarTactical.com. I hope you found this of interest and it can help you out with cleaning your weapon. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube.